citizens of the nation, what is going on, guys? Sly here, and thank you all so much for checking out another Mass Effect Andromeda video. So, was that an awesome Thursday or what? So many new details, new videos, tons of reviews to sift through, and of course, a lot of information. There were over 30 websites that had articles up talking about their experiences, and pretty much every single one that I read had nothing but good things to say. A few pre-release bugs, but for the most part, it was awesome. You can see all the important things to take away from the media embargo and reviews in this video right here. You can click the link in the description box below, or you can wait till the end of this video and I'll put up a link in the outro. I go over all the new information and I sifted through tons of articles looking for the best scraps of news. Now I only go over new stuff, not things that we already know. I talk a little about Quarians, the names of all the other arcs, crafting, Inside the Tempest, character relations, and a lot more. So definitely check that out. It is pretty sweet. This video, however, we're going to break down the second video in the combat gameplay series titled Combat Profiles and Squads. This offers a deeper look into some of the inner workings of combat and combat squad interactions. So let's see what we can learn when we slow things down a bit and lean into the fine details. So the vid starts off with again another cutscene, but this time it looks way more fluid than the previous scenes. While other images were great, this actually shows gameplay in 60 frames and is a very noticeable difference. So that was great to see. It immediately starts up and dives into a few skills. Now first we see our start menu and then it jumps right into Singularity. The good thing is that the player here actually finishes upgrading this skill to its max rank of 6. So we get a look at all of the bonuses. Well, at least most of them. At rank 1, it unlocks the biotic power itself, which starts out at a damage of 35 per second, has a radius of 3 meters, and it only lasts for 8 seconds total. Recharge time is 24 seconds, and a neat thing here is that you can end your powers early. Here at the bottom, you can see that you tap the button again to end it. Now, unless I completely missed this in the original trilogy, this wasn't an option before. You had to wait it out. So if you made a mistake, you had to wait for the power to end, and then for it to recharge again. The benefit of ending it early is that you can quickly cancel out your mistake, and then recharge right away, saving yourself precious time. 8 seconds, might not seem like that much, but when you're at the end of your health bar, 8 seconds is forever. Moving forward, rank 2 is 10% recharge speed, then rank 3 is an extra 25% damage increase per second, so that bumps up your damage from 35 to about 44, actually a little bit under, I think it's 43.75. Now just like in Mass Effect 3, after rank 3, you can now split off into 2 separate versions of the same power, which is great for customizing your character's combat style. Now I'll split the top line into A and the bottom into B. Now unfortunately we don't get to see every single upgrade here, but it's the best look we've had thus far. So at rank 4A you can increase duration by 40%, or rank 4B gets you a radius increase, and I'm assuming it would also be 30 to 40%, however the player doesn't hover over it so we don't get to see it. Next, rank 5A increases damage to shields by a massive 150%, or rank 5B would forego the shield damage and increase the recharge speed by 25%. And finally, rank 6 is where you choose 2 distinctly different versions of one another. Rank 6A is Exploding Singularity and 6B is Expanding Singularity. Now unfortunately we don't get to see what's behind Exploding Singularity, but I'm willing to bet that it's a safe assumption it'll be the same thing as it was in ME3. Expanding Singularity expands the radius of Singularity by 200% over its duration, or they call it lifetime. So it just keeps growing, and right before it dies out, its influence will be 200% larger. That is a very large Singularity field. Moving along here, we see another Rokar Saboteur, which I'm beginning to think that they are just another faction instead of a new race. I don't know that for sure, but I didn't see anyone mention the Rokar in any of the previous reviews that I read, so we'll just have to wait and find out. Next, we get a quick look at some of the new combat skills in Andromeda, as well as a few originals. First though, if you pause right here, you can see one of the more interesting skills, the Flat Cannon. It comes in quickly and it's kind of hard to read, but it says that flat cannons fire Krogan-designed shells that burst into shrapnel upon impact. Shrapnel damage is reduced against armored opponents. Currently, this rank here is set at 6, with some decent stats, and it looks like rank 6 you get to carry 3 shots. Since we now know that power cells are simply a fancy way of saying grenade ammo, that means power cell capacity simply means how many rounds we have total. So it says here capacity of 2 to start out with, and then as you rank up, you can choose to gain an additional power cell slot. Trip mines have been around for a while, but look at that maximum damage, guys, 1350, and it shows that later on in the video. I'll be sure to point it out when it does. Next, we see another new skill, Turbocharge. It says that it temporarily vents weapon heat via armor to improve thermal clip efficiency and boost weapon firing rates. So if it works on thermal clips, I wonder if it will also improve heat buildup when we craft Mass Effect 1 style weapons, you know, with the overheat mechanic. I certainly hope so. Anyways, this skill is only at rank 2 and it isn't passive. Once activated, you only have 8 seconds. But within that 8 seconds, you have extra 10% gun damage, 20% rate of fire bonus, 20% clip size increase, and 10% recharge bonus. I'm assuming that's for all your skills. And in a few other trailers, I've seen weapon stability in there as well. So this is strictly an offensive weapon talent. I bet it would do wonders if you're rocking a heavy shotgun. And finally, we come to Barricade, which is something we've seen before, but I wanted to point out that this version of Barricade is at rank 6, and it only stays out for 12 seconds at the start. But further upgrades improve it by 65%, so that's roughly 20 seconds total. Although the most interesting thing is that it requires power cells. Now, one of the devs answered the question as to what power cells were, and he said to think of them as pretty much as grenade ammo. Well, it looks like that's not the entire story here. They seem to be more of an activating energy for skills rather than some kind of ammo. In any case, I thought that was pretty neat and that it should be pointed out. Alright, next we get to dive into certain profiles. Now, there have been some confusion as to what profiles really do, and I've had quite a few messages on Twitter asking what the differences were. So the best way to think of profiles in Andromeda is to imagine that they are simply bonuses. It doesn't matter what profile you choose, you can still equip any skill you want, no matter the discipline. But equipping the Adept profile, which is set for mainly biotics, wouldn't make sense if you had nothing but combat skills on. So it's best to think of profiles simply as free bonuses for your skills. Choose your loadout of your 3 favorite skills and then take a look at which profile would suit your needs best. If you have Flamethrower, Biotic Charge, and Singularity on, then it makes the most sense that you would want bonuses to help you with that as much as possible. And on top of that, think about the kind of combinations you could throw together. For instance, Singularity and Flamethrower are both combo primers, while Charge is a detonator. So if you choose the Adept profile, you get 15% extra biotic force, an extra 15% area of effect damage, and a 15% larger radius, which means a larger singularity. And on top of all of that, they stay out for 20% longer, and have something called biotic echoes, which are additional explosions that do additional damage to their enemies, and depending on how many are affected, determines the number of extra explosions. All of that just by equipping the Adept profile. Now, while you're using the Adept profile and spending points upgrading skills, at certain increments of the amount of points spent into skills, you will upgrade your equipped profile. And of course, when you upgrade a profile into a higher rank, additional bonuses will be unlocked. So those could lead to more opportunities. Each profile can only go up to a rank of 6 before they are maxed out. Like I said, you can equip the Soldier profile and then have nothing but biotic skills equipped. But that's okay, because as you can see here, the Soldier profile increases weapon damage by 16%, also 25% accuracy, and you also receive 8 extra points in damage resistance, and an increased mag for all of your weapons. So the real art here is pairing your skills with the correct profile to get the maximum benefit out of your combat style. There's no wrong choice here, and you're not locked down. Now, one thing I wanted to point out was that in my last breakdown video of the weapons and skills video, you see Ryder using some kind of blink instead of a jetpack. Now, at first I thought it was a simple upgrade you would equip to your armor, but it turns out it's actually the profile that makes this change. As you can see here, when we hover over Explorer, at the bottom it shows Biotic Blink. So the Explorer profile is how you change out your evasive option. Also, the Explorer profile seems to be a great middle ground. Kind of like, middle of the road. You get weapon damage, damage resistance, and help with biotics. It pretty much covers it all. Now, before we move on, I noticed another jetpack replacement that I'm not sure we've seen yet, which is here at the end of the Adept profile. It's Biotic Jump and Evade. Now, we've seen Jetpack, of course, we've seen Blink, but I'm not sure I've caught any Biotic Jumps yet. So that's another thing I can't wait to see and try out. Alright, so moving out of profiles, let's take a look at a little combat. Now, in my last video, it showed Ryder almost blind firing over the top of the barricade. And by the way, blind firing is any time you're not aiming down your sights. Now, it didn't completely show him shooting over top of cover, but this video finally confirms that it is indeed possible. Next, they get into some detail about the way favorites are managed. Now, favorites are simply a way to save your most used profiles. You can have 4 favorites total, 1 equipped at any given time, and then 3 you can rotate out to. Each favorite has 3 abilities within them, so that's a total of 12. 3 equipped at any given time, and 9 as backup. This makes approaching enemies with layered defenses an absolute breeze. Now, one of the things I hated running into in the trilogy were enemies that had shields, then armor, and then health below that. And usually when I saw them, I only had disruptor ammo available. So while the shields went down fast, the armor not so much. This time you can tackle layered defenses very, very easily. Or if you want, you can simply have 1 favorite for each type of fighting style. 1 combat soldier, 1 adept, 1 engineer, and another for support or maybe even close quarters. There are plenty of options. And with each skill having like 10 different ways to rank up, that makes for plenty of variety. Now as we get to the end, it shows how having favorites can come in handy, especially with larger bosses, and from images like this, it's a good thing that we have variety. So one thing to know about favorites are that whenever you switch to a different setup, they will automatically be on cooldown. Even if your prior skills were ready to use, once you switch, they will all be reset again, so it does take some time to be able to use them. Also, take a look at Ryder here. Notice what happens to his armor. Tech armor pops up, but notice how it isn't a skill. It seems to happen automatically. Now, I can't figure out if maybe it's a support talent from another teammate, or maybe it's a perk in his armor, or what the deal is. But my best guess is that it's a talent hidden within the Sentinel profile, or it's an augmentation crafted into his armor. Augmentations, by the way, are new ways that you can craft armor and weapons to give them extra abilities. I go over it in my media breakdown video, which I mentioned at the beginning, and that seems to be how we incorporate Mass Effect 1's overheat mechanic into Milky Way weapons. More so, you can add bonuses to weapons as well. In any case, it seems like the tech armor comes and goes. Now maybe after a certain amount of damage it goes away and then resets after a cooldown? I'm not sure, but either way, I'm glad to see it back. Even though it's not a deployable skill, it's still good to see it. Alright, so moving on to the last few things here. Did you see that jump? Take a look again, guys. There it is. Biotic, jump, and evade. Also, take notice that when Ryder switches profiles, the tech armor does not come back, so it must be a Sentinel bonus. But I don't know what's better, the jump pack or the Biotic jump. I mean, look how high this guy goes. So there's our first look at Biotic jump. Alright, and finally we get a look at destructible cover. Right as Ryder throws his shockwave, it breaks the railing he was just using for cover. So it's nice to know that you can't just bunker down behind cover and get to wait it out. You have to keep moving. And remember earlier on when I said I'll let you all know about the power of the trip mine? Here it is. It just drops this fiend. After all that shooting and all the biotics, the trip mine took a huge chunk of his health out and ended up taking him down. Love it. Alright, and moving on to the last thing I wanted to talk about was something I forgot in my last video breakdown of weapons and skills, but I think it's fitting for this video anyway. It has to do with squad skill usage. Now in previous games, we could tell our squad mates which power to use on which enemy. Well, this time around we can still select the enemy, but the AI of our squad mates dictate which power it will ultimately use. We do not get to make that decision. According to the devs, the system is pretty smart and will use the most appropriate skill in its inventory for that specific time. If, for example, Cora has a detonator, you can simply press the left or right D-pad, whichever side she's programmed on, and then she will automatically use the correct skill to detonate. And, at least in theory. I doubt it's going to be 100% flawless, and I personally would rather have control back, but given all that we gain in this game over previous ones, I think it's a tolerable compromise. Anyway, so if you're wondering how to order squad mates to use powers, unfortunately guys, you can't. You can tell it to attack with a power, but he or she makes its own decisions on what to use. Alright, and the absolute final thing I wanted to point out in this video, and guys, I promise this is it, take a look at this ending scene. It shows planet scanning, and similar to the original series, an anomaly pops up and we send in a probe to investigate. Now, I'm almost positive that this is the same thing we'll be seeing in-game, because if you look carefully, you can see the menu at the bottom of the screen. Now, they kind of try to blur it out here, but it is still visible. You can make out the controller buttons, activate scanner, and also planet view. So this is definitely a sneak peek at launching probes from the Tempest. Also, at the top, it shows, I'm assuming, the planet's name and the progression of that planet. But when we zoom in, it shows this satellite, so perhaps the satellite is actually the anomaly that was scanned. It's kind of hard to read, but it does say something on the side about how it came from the Hyperion. It has a power reading of 64%, it is currently inactive, and it says something about being damaged by the Scourge. The bottom says analysis, and in broken sentences, it says registration shows it ends up breaking here, accidentally from the Hyperion, and then it says collision with the Scourge. At least I think it does. It's kind of hard to read, but that's all that's legible. I think it might say that it was ejected accidentally by the Hyperion, and it accidentally hit the Scourge on its way to the planet. And it's been captured in orbit ever since. Anyways, I thought this was pretty cool, and if all anomalies look this good, then that is another thing to be excited about. Alright, that's about it, ladies and gents. Now, I watched this a couple of times through, and that's about all the stuff I can pull out that we didn't already know. Time is definitely passing us by, guys, and we are less than 3 weeks until early access. I don't know about you all, but I cannot freaking wait. Alright, well, that's it for me, initiates. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I've been loving the support you've all been showing me, and I cannot thank you guys enough. I plan on having a giveaway next month sometime as a way to say thank you, so make sure you stay tuned and keep an eye out for that. As always, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at SlyNation or even on my lonely Facebook page, SlyNation Gaming. It's kind of new, so be gentle on critiquing it. Anyway, guys, I'm out, y'all. Keep an eye out for more Mass Effect Andromeda videos coming out of my channel in the very near future. But until then, this is your boy Sly, and I will catch you all next time.
Let's go.